Hi, everyone. And thank you, ladies, for sharing your efforts on some really awesome projects and research so far. So I just wanted to quickly interrupt our regularly scheduled programming to briefly get on my soapbox about verification in the certification world. My name is Angela Iraldi, and I am a sustainability consultant with Revision Architecture, where I manage lots of projects: Passive House, LBC, Net Zero, LEED, enclosure commissioning, among others. And from the very start of my career, I have been fortunate to be involved in the on-site verification of building construction and performance. At Revision, I continue to provide on-site verification through my Passive House work. I'm a Phius verifier, and also my work as an enclosure commissioning provider. And my job really is to guide and educate other design teams, contractors, owners, and facilities managers and personnel to deliver more sustainable buildings. And that is usually through certifications and benchmarking. So certifications are great frameworks for getting us to think about and implement our priorities and green goals on a project. Without a certification, there's really not much accountability. You know, they establish specific benchmarks for teams to work towards. Certifications are also really great for bringing to light issues we historically have not addressed. For example, more and more certifications are addressing things like material health and embodied carbon. And rating systems give these issues a worldwide platform. On the flip side, I feel that there is definitely still room for improvement with some of our rating systems. Number one, I don't think they all push enough. And number two, there still exists a lack of QA/QC in a lot of rating systems. You know, achieving a certification shouldn't mean it's a barely code compliant building. Like, rating systems are supposed to include the upper echelon of buildings. You get a plaque on the wall for this achievement. We shouldn't be giving out plaques for barely okay buildings. You know, given the recent IPCC report and our 2030 and our 2050 goals, we need to make sure that we're creating rating systems that push past outdated standards. I think we all know or can understand that design is a very important factor in determining the performance of a building over its lifetime. But let me tell you something. What's on paper is never what's in real life. And that's why performance-based rating systems are so important, and what we need to keep implementing and move away from these prescriptive type approaches and standards that we still see in certain certifications and the code world. And while I am a fan of rating systems, I do understand that they don't fit every project perfectly. And even if you're not using a rating system for one of your projects, you still need a QA/QC program to confirm your project goals are being met. You know, I've worked with folks in the past, for example, who said they're working on a LEED equivalent project. But like, what does that mean? Says who? Is someone checking that? You know, unless you have someone or multiple people verifying what's been done, I'm a little skeptical, quite frankly. Enter third-party on-site verification. Again, on paper, we could have a high-performing net zero, net carbon building. But if we don't verify that, who knows how the building is actually performing? Like, who really knows if the systems or materials claimed during design actually got installed? No matter what rating system or framework you're using, verification is so important. Like so many things in life, it would be fantastic if you know, we planned and designed and everything went swimmingly. But unfortunately, it usually doesn't. And sometimes, no matter how much you plan, things can still get a little messy. I like to use a quote from William Rose, and that's, when water comes into buildings, it comes in through the cracks between the design and the construction professions. Now, obviously that quote is specific to water, but you can see how it applies to lots of other building issues as well. And it's okay, like issues will happen, and it's usually nothing we can't clean up if we have verification in place. So sticking with the certifications we're covering today, LEED, LBC, and Passive House all have components of verification. Before joining Revision, a lot of my experience was in MEP commissioning for LEED projects. And I cannot begin to tell you how many things I saw that not only were not as designed, but were so fundamentally messed up, usually because no one checked them or because the responsible party didn't know what they were doing. You know, I had projects where the contractor simply did not program the building systems correctly or at all. So then you have equipment, air handlers, et cetera, running 24/7. And I used to work on large commercial projects. I mean, big energy consuming buildings, right? You can have the most efficient systems and the best controls specified, but if your equipment doesn't get programmed correctly, then all of that goes out the window. You know, if you're working on a zero energy or an LBC project, the equation, again, on paper is simple. Energy produced must be greater than energy consumed. Well, that doesn't just happen automatically after the building is constructed. Again, things happen all the time. On all of our LBC projects, we are actively involved post-occupancy, tracking metering information, renewables production, and troubleshooting systems. Unlike LEED, there's no formal commissioning requirement or audit requirement other than ILFI's audit, but I'm telling you, without it, you won't be optimizing your building, and there's a very good chance that you could jeopardize your certification goals. And I also would encourage folks working on LBC projects, if not also pursuing a LEED or another certification, to involve a competent person to do commissioning or verification of the project. And lastly, with Passive House projects, we have a verifier, hopefully, actively engaged throughout the process to verify that our Passive House benchmarks are being met. And since we're at the PhiusCon conference, I did want to take a few minutes to talk about a Phius project that we recently completed and discuss the certification requirements in a little more detail and the importance of verification. So passive houses, as we all know, are supposed to be energy efficient, durable, have great indoor air quality, and be comfortable for all occupants. So to achieve all of these goals, Phius actually uses several other certifications as prerequisites to certification. Is everyone familiar with Matryoshka dolls, the Russian nesting dolls, where you have one big one, and then inside that is a smaller doll, and inside that an even smaller doll? Well, Phius certification is kind of like that. It's built on existing certifications that focus on indoor air quality, health, renewables, comfort, and compartmentalization, as if we weren't talking about enough certifications today, right? So a lot of Phius projects being built fall into this category that you can see on the screen, this orange category of residential 5 stories or less. And as such, all Phius projects must successfully achieve the relevant certifications in addition to meeting all of the Phius requirements. So these include Energy Star, Zero Energy Ready Homes, and Indoor Air Plus. These certifications are really well intended, but they don't move the needle enough, in my opinion. So we bring them under our Phius umbrella and combine them with our Passive House goals. And I will say that if you're working on a Passive House project, that these other certifications are generally easy to achieve, but teams do need to be aware of them. So please involve a verifier as soon as Passive House becomes a goal of the project. And also, without getting into too much detail here, I did just want to note that if you are working on a high-rise or commercial project, you're currently exempt from most of these requirements, but do be aware as we move to the 2021 PHIUS standard, some of these requirements will apply. So high-level takeaway, engage a verifier early to make sure that these goals and requirements are met. You know, with PHIUS, the intent here is that we are really looking at all of these different things that affect a building's performance. You know, as you can see from the table, we've adopted several requirements of other certifications into our PHIUS standard. You know, we all know the almighty blower test, right? But we also want to verify that these other aspects related to IAQ, comfort, etc., are achieved. Okay, so now I'll talk about a few specifics around verification for a multifamily PHIUS project we recently completed in Pennsylvania. So, like any construction project, field changes can happen. And it's the job of the verifier to verify what is installed is per the design. For example, one of the first things we observed at our initial site visit for this project was 6 inches of subslab insulation installed. But the drawings called for 4 inches. Now, in coordinating with the team, it was confirmed that there was a design change and the installed condition was supposed to be 6 inches, but we needed to also verify that the Wolfie model accounted for this change. And in our case, the model really wasn't affected with 4 inches versus 6 inches of insulation. But if you're working on a larger multifamily project, for instance, 2 extra inches of insulation could really mess with your cooling loads. And comfort in the building could be greatly affected with a mistake like this. Also, for this project, we were using a sheet applied SIGA air barrier, and it was adhered to the structure with staples, which is a manufacturer's approved method. However, as you can see here on the left, several of the staples missed the structural members, resulting in these tiny leakage points across the entire membrane. And you know, how much this contributed to the overall leakage is hard to say, but it certainly did not help at all. You know, these issues caused us to fail our preliminary blower door tests, and it certainly did not represent the air tightness we wanted to achieve to get that superior energy efficiency. So to solve this, we had to go back and tape over all of the staples across the whole air barrier. And that's what you can see in the bottom right photo there. And this was not an insignificant task. The other thing I want to note here is that it's important to try to preclude issues as much as possible. So above this air barrier, we were installing loose fill insulation, and SIGA actually recommends installing battens to support the load of the insulation so that the air barrier doesn't pull away from the structure and completely lose its function once that insulation is installed. So that was something we noted. That's what I'm noting in that top right photo there. And we did subsequently install the battens for this project to support that air barrier. Okay, I swear this isn't a photo of me taking a nap on the job. So we all know Passive House minimizes our mechanical systems needed, but we still need them to operate as intended for proper equipment operation, thermal comfort, etc. You know, just because you pass your blower door test doesn't mean that your building is totally comfortable or even safe. For this project, we did run into some air balancing issues and work with the contractor to get those corrected. I include this slide mostly because I believe it's an unspoken responsibility to train and coach teams, because a lot of times teams don't know what we're doing when we're on site or why. That picture on the right is me involving a contractor in our air balancing activities. So we understood what we were doing. You know, coaching is the only way we can build awareness around Passive House and make our lives easier in the future, because then teams know what to do and what to expect. Okay, so some final thoughts around certifications and verification. It's not rocket science. When people ask me what we need to do to be truly sustainable, I usually always say the following 3 things. Number 1, we should build things that last a long time so we don't have to build them again. Number 2, we should build buildings that use less energy because we don't have much left. And number 3, we should build buildings that don't kill people, because that's not good. Like, come on, we can make the leap to bigger and better things. There's a political phrase, trust but verify, but I like to change that and say distrust and verify. And it's nothing personal against designers or contractors. It just is what it is. So I think in closing, you know, we can use all of the certification standards mentioned already today by Christy early on. And with some pushing and some customization as needed and third-party on-site verification, we can get to where we need to be truly sustainable. Thanks.
So Sayu and I met at my very first Passive House conference quite a while ago, and we have stayed in touch over the years. And so we thought it was really a good idea to bring her into the conversation that we're having. I think her point of view is very valuable and very insightful. So I'm glad, Sayu, you can join us.
Thank you, Christina. So hi, my name is Sayu Okada. I am now in Japan, and my background is I was raised in Japan and moved to US and stayed for 20 years working as an architect and in Boston, Massachusetts. And now I'm back in Boston, and what I'm doing now is that I still work for
wait, you said you're back in Boston, but you're back in Japan.
Back in Japan, yes, sorry.
It's early where you are right now.
Back in Japan, this is where I grew up, this house. And I still work for a firm in Boston remotely. And also I teach at Boston CPAC courses at university. And I work for sustainable consultant here, doing the LEED well and Passive House certification. And I also developing the CPAC courses in Japan and just completed first CPAC courses, and I'm just grading the design exam right now. So that's like what I'm doing now. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
How is the shift going from basically America to Japan, or going back there, like in terms of like your view of certifications, or also like working remotely from home? How does it all work for you?
So the remote working, US and Japan, it's like waking up the weird hours, having the meetings, sometimes having a meeting in PJ, not with a client. So weird hours happens, but it's great because I can still connect to the colleagues in US, and then kind of have that learning what's going on in Passive House world, the certifications and other sustainability practice like that is super delayed in here. Like they're not advanced as far as the sustainability practice here. So I can bring in that knowledge here, and then as part of the teaching of the CPAC courses. So it's been good to have that both world that coming together.
So you have said before that like how the passive house had to be adjusted for the US. You have experienced the same with Japan, right? It's different culture, different construction methods.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so the as you can see, that wood is very prominent here. That some houses are, want to use the wood being exposed to exterior as part of the aesthetic things. So if you started to say like that would be the challenge for retrofit. Like you're gonna be completely changing the exterior aesthetics of the house. So the renovation retrofit to the passive standard, for example, is very tricky. But there's methods that we were discussing now that might work. So it's been interesting. But also the what I felt interesting difference is that the way people live here will change how internal load, especially because I think that might have happened when that German standard came to US, because in Germany, there's a certain way of living and different from US. I'm sure you know the differences. That same thing happened in US to Japan, where we take like bath every day, and that creates a lot of moistures and heat. And most people don't do the clothing dryer. We clothesline it. So that's sort of differences. I don't know, I've been doing a research with the building scientist professor here that how that internal load will change. And the stuff that we eat is creates a lot more humidity. Like humidity is more of differences, I guess, like cooked rice we eat rice every day, like even in the morning. Hot pot, we do that during the winter a lot more than here, but we don't cook like an oven cooked like a turkey. Like that heat isn't here. So we kind of have to do that research on what the internal load looks like. And climate is a lot more humid. Like we're still in the summer. So like in US, it's like a climate zone 3 is the most of Japan, but there's climate 7 and a climate 1 exists in that little island here. So it has quite a range of climate zones. And I think that's why I thought that bringing a climate specific standard from US would work, and adjusting those internal load internal load numbers would, it'd be interesting to know what that pass looks like here.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So
Yeah.
you're basically taking the Phius framework and you're trying to apply that to your conditions. And so are you intending to then kind of change the standards so that it fits to Japan, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's not, so we're not really changing the standard. I think we were discussing with the Phius on like sort of like what's the adjustment that we need to make in order to kind of use that framework here. The culture wise, it's obviously differences makes the numbers in that Wolfie passive. So things like that, it's not a change in the standard, but it's changing the way that we calculate.
The parameters, basically.
Parameters, yeah.
So I'm curious about the cooking. So do you typically have exhaust hoods in your kitchens?
Yeah. It's where, it might be different in other, parts of Japan, but we eat a lot of fish. So we need to get that fish smell out of the house.
Yeah.
And that is probably differences. So we have like exhaust food, but also it's the makeup air is part of that food. That kind of food is available. Like it's automatic makeup air is part of the hood. So that it's being used for airtight buildings here.
Nice.
And that, I don't know whether it exists in US. I have not
seen that. Would be nice. So
Yeah.
is there other technology that you feel like that you that are available to you but not available here in the
In the
US?
US,
Yeah.
well, the heat pump, the Mitsubishis and Daikins are from here. So we have, I feel like we have a smaller units than over in the US. Um, the CO2 based hot water heater, hot water heater is very like common things to do, but not in US where it's kind of started to be used in the market. So there's probably other hydronic system that is, I don't know yet, that it's used more. So the mechanical systems are, ready, but I think, they haven't put that to really good building yet. So that matching isn't happened yet. So they're working with the worldwide clients like Europe and US where they know that it's coming, but I don't think the architects and mechanical are not met yet, I guess.
So Sayu, I know you wear a lot of different hats. You do so many different things, and you also have a family. How do you combine it all? How do you make it all happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of doing it. It's I wake up early, and I think the keys for me is that you make a schedule so that in a Google Calendar, I have like kind of detailed schedule so that I don't forget things. Like, and then alarm that shows you can't go to sleep because you have a meeting at 10 today. So yeah, it's basically scheduling yourself a lot more like better than when I was in US. It's the key, and then doing more exercise because I just sit all day. So.
And how do you feel women are considered in the field of architecture in Japan? Is there a difference from what you have experienced?
Yeah, women's are still, what's the best word? But it's more like the men's are more stronger than the women here. Like it's hasn't have that the Europe and US like women should be equal. We talk about it, but it's not happened yet. So there's still a struggle in the women where women should be raising kids and men should be working. And so in order for women to work, it's harder socially harder.
Do you feel that being a consultant or certified consultant and having these certifications in general, does that help you as a woman?
Yeah, I think so. And then my background, I mean, my family, it's fine. Like I have a husband from the States that kind of has a standard that understand you have to raise your kids too because it's your kids too. So it's not a problem. But I think in the outside world, because I have the certifications license from the US, that is I have the knowledge that not a lot of people has here. So that definitely helps.
So you get more respect and
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So how did you even end up being so interested in becoming a passive house consultant? Did you know about it before, like growing up in Japan, or?
Growing up in Japan, definitely no. I lost jobs during the 2007 economic crash. So I was kind of looking for some things that add to my credentials. So the CPHC training was available. So I took that, as, I need something other than architecture degree. So it was, and then I met many people there that is still very major player in the US, like as far as the passport, pushing the passports movements. So that was great to meet these people that it's doing a lot of projects that is leading the US market. But also the 2011 earthquake that happened in the Fukushima area, that I actually went to Japan. As you know, I planned to go back, but the earthquake just happened to happen 2 months before that, and I was in Tokyo, and they were doing a planned blackout, so I was in stations and the buildings that are not having the mechanical system working, and it was so hot, and outside was cold still. So I was like, this isn't great, right? Like, it's not, resiliency isn't there. Like, a building design was totally relying on what mechanical system can provide. So I was like that, and then I learned that Pascal's ideas prior to that. So it's like, that might be a solution to this whole energy dependency. So I think that event, it's probably, it gave me that drive to learn more.
Yeah, yeah. So is there a Passive House Institute in Japan yet? Or are you starting it up?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Passive House Institute Japan. So that's where I kind of developed translating the trainings, and then developed the training with the help of Phius, Lisa and Catherine's, Josh. So we're, it's still small movements, but I think I'm still grading, but I think we have like 7 CPHC, new CPHCs coming. So yeah, it's good.
That's great. Thank you so much for telling us your story, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Wish you could be here with us.
Yeah.
But, it's amazing that we can all virtually connect.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's a great honor to be part of this presentation.